My daughter once shouted at me right in the middle of my own kitchen, "You either serve my husband or get out of my house." I didn't raise my voice, didn't slam a thing. I just smiled, picked up the suitcase I'd packed the night before, and walked out the front door. Before we get started, hit subscribe or leave a comment. It helps more than you know. I'd paid for that house with the better part of my life, through long days, skipped vacations, compound interest, and the kind of discipline that leaves you quietly proud and quietly alone. She stood there waiting for me to break down like I always had, but this time I gave her nothing. 1 week later, I had 22 missed calls and a hell of a lot more planned. But let me take you back to where it started to fall apart. It was a Saturday, early spring, the kind of day when the air smells faintly of thawed soil and far-off rain. I'd just come back from the grocery store, the plastic bags cutting into my fingers, my keys still warm in my palm as I pushed open the door to 847 Pine Street, the house Martha and I bought in '96, back when interest rates were decent and the world felt stable. The sun filtered through the curtains in the living room. It used to make me feel grateful. Today, it just made the dust stand out on the coffee table. Harry, my son-in-law, was parked in my recliner. Legs up, beer in hand, remote on his belly like a badge of entitlement. Martha bought that recliner for me the year before she passed. She told me I'd earned a throne. Harry treated it like a bar stool. "Grab me another beer while you're up," he said, not even looking at me. I set the groceries down gently. 2 gallons of milk, 4 loaves of bread, the usual rotation of items they never thanked me for. Red lines from the plastic dug into my palms. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," he said, still watching the game. "Corona, not that cheap swill you drink." I blinked. I'd bought those Coronas for him, spent part of my social security on beer I didn't even like. "Harry, I just got back. I need to put these away." He finally looked at me, not with shame or sheepishness. No, that look was sharper, like I was a toddler refusing to share a toy. "What's the big deal? You're already standing." "The big deal is this is my house." He stood then, tall, broad, 30, and confident. The kind of confidence that comes not from earning respect, but from never being told no. I'd dealt with his kind for decades at the bank. Bullish, arrogant, afraid underneath it all. "Your house?" he said, stepping closer. "Funny, because your daughter and I live here. We pay the bills, my money." "Details," I said. He took another swig. "Look, Clark, we can do this easy or hard. You want peace around here? Then play ball. Simple." The kitchen door swung open. Tiffany stood there, hair up, dish towel in hand. She looked from him to me. I waited for her to say something. Anything. To check him, to ease the tension. "What's going on?" she asked sharply. "Your father's being difficult," Harry said, without looking away from me. "I asked for a beer, and now we've got an issue." She turned her eyes on me, and I felt it. The same look I'd seen when she was 13 and trying to lie about staying out past curfew. But this time, she wasn't lying. This time, she believed it. "Dad, just get him the beer. It's not worth it." Harry stepped closer. I could smell the alcohol now, bitter and warm. "Here's how this works," he said. "You live in our house, you contribute. That means when I ask, you do. No questions." "Our house?" I repeated. Tiffany crossed her arms and joined him, not physically, but in posture, in silence. That was all it took. "That's right," she said. "You need to decide. Either help Harry or pack your things." And that was it. The air went still. Time flattened. I looked at her, searching for the little girl who used to beg me to chase fireflies with her in the backyard. "All right," I said. Harry smirked. Thought he'd won. "Good. Now, about that beer, I'll pack." The smirk dropped. Tiffany's mouth parted slightly as I'm waiting for the apology, For the shuffle, for the grovel. I turned down the hallway, left the bags by the door, let the silence do the talking. Behind me, I heard Harry curse, heard Tiffany whisper my name like a prayer too late. I walked down the hall Martha and I had sanded together 20 summers ago, pulled the suitcase from the top shelf of the closet, the one we took to Yellowstone on our honeymoon, and set it on the bed. It opened like a mouth ready to swallow what remained of my life there. I packed slowly, deliberately. I wasn't just leaving, I was beginning. I didn't take everything, just enough. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of slacks, socks, underwear, my reading glasses, my blood pressure pills, and the photo of Martha I kept on my nightstand. The one where we're both wearing parkas in front of Old Faithful, our cheeks red from wind and laughter. I wrapped it in tissue and tucked it into the side pocket. They were whispering out in the living room. I could hear the tone, even if not the words. Urgent, frantic, like 2 kids who'd just broken a window and weren't sure who to blame. I didn't rush. I wanted them to sit with the sound of zippers and folded cloth. Let it sink in that I wasn't bluffing, that I wasn't going to be the old man they could guilt into staying. When I wheeled the suitcase down the hall, they both fell silent. Harry was back in the recliner, sitting like a coiled spring. Tiffany stood by the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, eyes darting between me and the bag. Neither one said goodbye. The Buick started on the first try. She always did. I'd kept her maintained with the same devotion I gave everything I loved. Quiet, consistent, unspectacular care. I backed out of the driveway without glancing at the window. I didn't want to know if they were watching. I drove through town, past the high school, the diner, the church where Tiffany was baptized, where Martha's ashes were blessed before we scattered them over Flathead Lake. Every corner held a memory, and each one stung a little less than I expected. Pine Lodge was a 1-story motel on the edge of town, mostly used by hunters in the fall and traveling salesmen the rest of the year. My room was clean and plain. A double bed, a particle board dresser, and a thin curtain that struggled to keep out the setting sun. It smelled faintly of bleach and old carpet. I didn't mind. I sat on the edge of the bed and let the silence wrap around me. It was different from home. Not comfortable, not familiar, but honest. It didn't pretend to be anything it wasn't. I opened my laptop on the small table by the window and logged into my online banking. The numbers blinked back at me: checking, savings, retirement. Neat little rows that represented a lifetime of skipped coffees and worn work shoes, of Martha saying, "We don't need it," every time I thought of replacing the sofa. I pulled out my notebook and began making a list. Not revenge, just the facts. The systems. The scaffolding of support I'd built for them, quietly, month by month, thinking it was love. Tiffany's tuition. $40,000 over 4 years at a private college she couldn't afford. Wedding $25,000 when Harry's parents couldn't come up with their share. Down payment on the house. $80,000 from my retirement account. Monthly mortgage support, $200. Utilities, $300. Groceries, at least $500 most months. Car insurance, $280, both vehicles under my name. 3 credit cards, all in my name, all with Tiffany as an authorized user. I stared at the numbers until they blurred. The next morning, I made coffee in the motel lobby and walked back to my room with a cup of something barely passable. The first call went to the bank. "First National, how can I help you today?" "I need to cancel an automatic payment," I said. "Mortgage at 847 Pine Street, ending in 4729. A pause. "That's been active for 5 years, sir. Are you sure?" "Yes, the homeowners no longer qualify for financial assistance." Clicking keys. "Understood. Effective immediately. You'll receive written confirmation." Next, Geico. Remove both vehicles from my policy. Tiffany and Harry would need their own coverage. Then the credit cards. I removed Tiffany as an authorized user from all 3 accounts. Any balances? I'd cover my portion, not theirs. By noon, I'd made 8 calls, Legal, clean, precise. By dusk, they still didn't know, but they would. Soon. And it wouldn't be me knocking at their door. It would be reality. And reality doesn't ask politely. Wednesday afternoon, my phone began to light up. At first, it was just Tiffany, a couple of casual messages. Hey, Dad, weird issue with the mortgage. Can you check if the bank made a mistake? Followed by, Harry's insurance lapsed. Thought it was auto pay. I didn't reply. I'd always been fast to respond before. Dropped everything, even during dinner, to help fix one more thing. Letting her sit in silence now, that was new for both of us. By Friday, I had 22 missed calls, 12 voicemails. I sat at the little motel desk, listening to each one in order, like peeling back layers of varnish until the original grain of panic showed. The first few were breezy. Tiffany again. Hey, Dad, probably just a glitch. Harry, you pay the mortgage late this month, Clark? Bank's being weird. But by voicemail 6, the tone changed. Tiffany, the bank called. They said the payment's been stopped. They want the full balance by Friday or they'll file notice. By voicemail 8, Harry's voice was tight with fury. You need to fix this, Clark. You're making us look like deadbeats. What the hell are you doing? By 12, Tiffany was crying. Please call me. I don't know what's going on. We're getting letters, the insurance, the cards. We can't keep up. Just talk to me. By 22, Harry had switched tactics. Listen, maybe I came on too strong. I was stressed. Let's sit down and figure this out. No hard feelings, right? I deleted each one after listening. No anger, just an odd, cool clarity. They were discovering what it meant to stand on their own. The next morning, someone knocked on my motel room door. I checked the peephole. It was both of them. Tiffany in leggings and one of Harry's sweatshirts, her eyes ringed red. Harry in jeans and a faded polo, scowling like a man who'd just realized the candy jar was empty and someone had changed the locks. I opened the door but didn't step aside. Dad, Tiffany said, soft, almost apologetic. We need to talk. About what? I asked. Harry pushed forward, voice louder. About the fact that you're trying to ruin our lives over a 6-pack of beer and some attitude. I'm not ruining anything, I said. I'm just not paying for it anymore. He pointed a finger, voice rising. The mortgage, Clark. You can't just yank that out from under us. It's not your mortgage, I replied. It's mine. My name on the deed. My name on the loan. You two were tenants, guess. Tiffany's lip trembled. Dad, please. We said things we shouldn't have. You can't just disappear. You told me to go, I said quietly. And I did. She stepped closer. That wasn't what I meant. Yes, it was, I said. You just didn't think I'd actually do it. Harry scoffed. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I looked at him. Really looked. The smugness had cracked. But the arrogance remained, like someone who still believed they were too clever to lose, even after the game had ended. I lived in that house for 20 years with Martha, I said. We built that life, paid every dime of it, and I let you move in. Covered the mortgage, insurance, groceries, you name it. And when I didn't jump to get you a beer, you both gave me a choice. Obey or leave. Tiffany looked away. Harry crossed his arms. So I left. You're punishing us, she whispered. We're family. No, I said. Family looks out for each other. Not just when it's convenient. Not just when there's money involved. And certainly not when they're shouting ultimatums in someone else's house. Harry stepped forward again, aggressive now. You think you're clever? You think this is going to make us come crawling? No, I said, calm as ice. But it'll make you stand. And standing on your own's the only way you'll ever grow. I started to close the door. Dad? Tiffany's voice cracked. I hesitated. She looked desperate. Not manipulative, not yet, just genuinely frightened. What about family? She asked. What about everything you did for us? That's the part you keep forgetting, I said. I already did it. And then I closed the door. Behind me, the motel room buzzed with stillness. Outside, they stood for a while. I didn't watch them leave, but I heard the car engine start, then fade down the road. It was the first time in 5 years my phone didn't ring after an argument. But I had a feeling the silence wouldn't last. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I missed the house, or them, but because the silence no longer felt like absence. It felt like clarity. I sat up in bed at Pine Lodge, sipping motel coffee so weak it tasted like memory, and stared at the ceiling until the sun started to climb over the horizon. Something had shifted inside me. Not anger, not grief. Just the stillness that comes after a storm. By mid-morning, I walked into town. I needed to think, and when I think, I walk. Kalispell isn't large. A few stoplights, 2 banks, 1 decent diner, and a hardware store that still sharpens mower blades for free. The kind of place where people wave when they drive past, whether they like you or not. I stopped into the diner first. Annie's on Main. Martha and I used to come here after her doctor appointments. She always ordered 2 eggs, rye toast, and a single pancake she swore she didn't want until it arrived. I took our old booth, corner seat, good view of the street. The waitress, Judy, still remembered how I take my coffee. She didn't ask any questions, bless her, just poured and walked away. But the other customers glanced my way. They'd heard something. Small towns absorb stories like cloth soaks up blood, quietly and completely. It didn't take long for confirmation. Clark Miller? A familiar voice called out. Bob Harrison. We'd worked together for years at First National, back before he got promoted to the regional branch in Helena. Good man. Too honest to be rich. We shook hands. Didn't expect to see you out at Pine Lodge, he said, sliding into the booth uninvited. Everything all right? I gave him the abbreviated version. The ultimatum, the suitcase, the motel. Bob listened, nodding slowly, mouth set in a hard line. When I finished, he leaned in. You know, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but your son-in-law tried to pull something shady a few months back. Loan application, $50,000. Claimed he needed it for home improvements. I frowned. Home improvements? Yeah, except he said he owned the house. Brought in documents that looked legit at first glance. Deed, proof of equity, even a falsified tax record. My stomach dropped. What happened? We flagged it, did a full title search. Everything came back to you, clean. Your name, your signature, no joint ownership, no transfer of deed. We shut it down and marked his profile. Did you report it? Technically, he didn't receive funds, so it's in that legal gray area. But I kept copies. Fraud is fraud, even if it fails. The words hit me like wind in the chest. Harry hadn't just been living off me. He'd been planning to steal from me. On paper. Quietly. Legally. And if he'd succeeded, I'd have been evicted from my own home, with no idea what happened until the sheriff came knocking. What do you think he needed the money for? I asked. Bob lowered his voice. Word is he's in deep with a few guys over at Glacier Peaks Casino. Poker tables? Pretty ugly. I sipped my coffee, suddenly not tasting it. Back at the motel, I opened my laptop and started a new document. Harry Thompson. Evidence? Fraud? Gambling? Deception? And I was just getting started. By 3:15 that afternoon, I was standing under the heavy sandstone arch of the Flathead County Courthouse. The building had always reminded me of a train station. Wide steps, brass handles, a place where people came and left changed. The clerk's office was quiet. A middle-aged woman with tired eyes asked how she could help. I laid the paperwork gently on the counter like I was setting down a loaded weapon. Eviction notice, I said, for 847 Pine Street. She flipped through the deed copy, the notarized ownership documents, the notarized statement I typed that morning with shaking hands. You're the sole property holder? She asked, scanning. Yes, ma'am. No co-owners, no liens. Paid off in full. It was a gift from my parents. I've paid the taxes every year since they passed. She gave a slow nod. And the tenants? My daughter and her husband, I said. They were living there by verbal agreement. No lease. The terms were mutual respect and shared responsibility. Both were violated. She looked at me for a long second, then stamped the top sheet. 30-day notice begins today. They'll receive official service of process within 48 hours. If they don't contest, the sheriff will deliver the final papers and remove them by the deadline. It was done in under 10 minutes. 3 years they'd lived in my house. And now the clock had started ticking. I walked straight from the courthouse to the police station. The front desk officer recognized me. Detective Morrison in? I asked. 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from Jim Morrison in a small, overstuffed office that smelled like paper and bad coffee. We'd served together on the church building committee back in the day. Good man. Calm eyes. The kind of guy who never blinks first. Clark, he said. Heard you were staying out at Pine Lodge. Trouble at home? You could say that. I laid it out clean. The attempted fraud Bob had mentioned. The eviction notice I'd just filed. The suspicion of gambling debt. Harry's behavior, controlling, threatening, escalating. Jim took notes without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back, folding his hands. I've heard your son-in-law's name before, he said. Glacier Peaks Casino flagged him in a few reports. He's been playing high stakes lately, more often than he can afford. How bad? Hard to say exactly, but between what we've heard from casino staff and a few collection calls we've had to field, I'd guess he's in for close to 20 grand. Maybe more. My breath caught. $20,000, and I'd been the silent cushion for every bounced check and past due bill. His creditors, might I ask, are they legitimate? Jim shrugged. Some, but at least 2 are from outfits that operate outside the law. Fast cash lenders. You don't pay, they don't send notices. They send trucks. I felt my throat go dry. What's their timeline? He's been stalling about 6 weeks. 3 months is usually the limit before collection turns into something more persuasive. I sat back in the hard plastic chair, letting that settle. This wasn't about disrespect anymore. This was survival. For him. He wasn't just rude or arrogant. He was cornered. And I was the last doorway he could try to kick open. But I'd already locked it. And now the law was standing behind me. I thanked Jim and walked back toward town. The air had that late autumn bite to it. Yellow leaves skittered across the sidewalk like the last pieces of something breaking apart. Back in the motel room, I opened the laptop and added the new information to the evidence file. Gambling debt. Estimated $20,000. Fraud attempt on deed, documented by Bob. Eviction notice, served. The web was tightening, and I wasn't caught in it anymore. I was pulling the strings. Friday morning, I made 6 phone calls before breakfast. Not to my daughter, not to Harry, not to anyone who'd left me holding their weight for the past 5 years. These were calls to people who mattered now. Marcus Webb at Frontier Financial Services picked up on the 3rd ring. Mr. Webb, Clark Miller here. You left me a message about Harry Thompson. Yes, sir. He listed your address on several loan applications. He no longer resides at my property. I filed eviction papers. He has no legal or financial claim to my home, and any future attempts to use that address will be reported as fraudulent. A pause, then, Understood, Mr. Miller. Thank you for the clarification. Click. One down. Next was Continental Credit Recovery. Same message, same result. By noon, I'd called 6 separate collection agencies. Calm, polite, professional. I wasn't giving them Harry's whereabouts, just correcting the false address he'd been using to protect himself. By the time I finished the last call, I felt lighter than I had in years. For once, I wasn't scrambling to fix someone else's mess. I was drawing clear lines. The sheriff's department served the eviction notice at 3:17 that afternoon. I didn't see it happen, but Mrs. Patterson did. My old neighbor from across the street. She called as soon as the cruiser pulled out of the driveway. Clark, dear, the deputy just handed them some papers. Harry threw them on the ground. Tiffany looked, I don't know, like she'd just woken up from a long nap. They'll be out in 30 days, I said. I don't know how you stayed so patient all this time. Too patient, I said quietly. That evening, as the sky turned copper over the ridge, I took my dinner, soup and crackers from the corner grocery, and walked to the little park by the river. I sat on a bench Martha and I used to visit during her good weeks, back when the cancer was slow and we still pretended it wasn't coming. Kids played tag near the picnic tables. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. Life, stubborn as ever, kept going. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I let it ring out. Voicemail. I didn't need to check it. I knew the pattern now. Panic, then guilt, then threats, then more panic. I walked back to the motel in the quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask for anything. When I got back, I found a text from my old friend Tom Kowalski, owner of Miller's Hardware, where I'd worked part-time after retiring from the bank. Clark, Harry came into the store earlier today. Told everyone you had a mental breakdown, that you're not in your right mind. Thought you should know. So this was his next move. If he couldn't scare me or guilt me, he'd discredit me. He was trying to take the one thing left I still had in this town. My reputation. But Harry never understood how small towns work. From there, I went to the Kalispell Tribune. I sat across from their editor, Margaret Pierce, and handed her a 2-page letter. I'd like this published next Wednesday. Letter to the editor. She read the first paragraph and looked up, eyes wide. You're serious about this? I've never been more serious. The letter was simple, factual, no accusations, just numbers, dates, and what I'd contributed. Tuition, mortgage payments, groceries, insurance. And the reason I'd left, a choice between obedience or dignity. I didn't name Harry. I didn't need to. Anyone who'd been paying attention would know. Back at the motel, I logged onto Facebook, the one account I'd kept mostly dormant except for photos of Martha and the occasional church announcement. I typed slowly, carefully, then hit post. Sometimes family doesn't fail you all at once. It fails you in small moments, in quiet ways. Over the past 5 years, I financially supported my daughter and her husband through tuition, housing, groceries, and insurance. It cost me over $200,000 and my sense of peace. 3 weeks ago, they asked me to obey or leave. I chose to leave. I'm not angry. I'm not vengeful. But I won't be silent about what dignity looks like in the face of entitlement. If you've experienced something similar, know this. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's clarity. I closed the laptop and went for a walk. Main Street was quiet. Sunday quiet. A few kids on bikes. A couple in matching windbreakers holding hands. I passed Miller's Hardware where Tom waved at me through the front window. I passed Annie's Diner where Judy gave me a knowing nod. Word was already spreading. Not the kind of gossip Harry had hoped for, but the kind that carried weight and truth. When I returned to the motel, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, I let it ring out. Voicemail. I waited, pressed play. Tiffany's voice. Dad, I saw the post, and I heard what you said at the bank. Everyone's talking. I guess I just didn't realize how far this had gone. I'm not calling to argue, just... I don't know, I miss you. I closed my eyes for a moment. Let the words land without breaking me. It wasn't an apology. Not yet. But it wasn't manipulation either. It was something softer. Something cracked open. For the first time, maybe I heard her voice without Harry's fingerprints all over it. I didn't call back. Not yet. Let her sit in that silence a while. Let her decide what she wanted to do with it. Monday morning, I woke to snow. Not much. Just a light dusting over the motel parking lot, the kind that settles on windshields before melting by noon. But it felt like a shift, like the season itself was drawing a line in the dirt. I pulled on my boots and coat and headed down to the diner. Ordered black coffee and oatmeal, same as always. Judy topped my mug without asking, then leaned in. "You've been the talk of the town, Clark." I figured. Most people are on your side. Some of them feel guilty. You gave so much and kept quiet for too long. That was my mistake. She squeezed my shoulder. Not anymore. After breakfast, I walked to the post office. I hadn't checked my P.O. box in a week. Inside were 4 envelopes, 3 bills, and 1 card. No return address. Just my name, handwritten. I opened it on the bench out front. Inside was a note. "I didn't know. Not all of it. I just thought you were helping because you wanted to. I didn't realize it was everything. I didn't realize I'd let him turn me into someone who could stand there and watch you pack. I'm sorry, Kadetide." It wasn't enough. Not yet. But it was real. Back at the motel, I called Jim Morrison. "I want to file the restraining order." "Understood. Come in after lunch. We'll draw it up." At the station, I handed him a printout of Harry's threatening voicemail and a timeline of every incident. The fraud attempt, the deception, the gambling, the manipulation. I included the story from the modal manager, how Harry had come by late, stood outside my door muttering about teaching old fools lessons. Jim scanned it all carefully, then looked up. "We can fast-track this. Judge will sign off within the day. You'll have legal protection within 24 hours. "How long does it last?" 6 months to a year, depending on circumstances. Renewable if needed. "Good," I said. He leaned forward. "Clark, you need to know something else. Harry's been asking around about Montana's adverse possession laws." I blinked. "Squatters' rights?" "Exactly. Trying to see if he can claim legal ownership of your house based on time spent there." My chest went cold. Is that even possible? Jim shook his head. "Not in this case. Montana law requires 5 continuous years of hostile occupation, without the owner's permission and with full assumption of control. You let them live there. You paid the bills. No court in the state would side with him." "But he's researching it." "Which means he's been planning something for a while," Jim said. "This wasn't just entitlement, it was premeditation." I thanked him and left, the restraining order paperwork in my hands. Back in the motel, I sat at the table and stared at the black binder. The Thompson file had grown thick. Every lie, every manipulation, every quiet withdrawal from my accounts was documented. But now, the law was behind me. I wasn't hiding in the motel anymore. I was drawing borders and putting his name on the wrong side of everyone. That afternoon, I walked out to the edge of Flathead Lake, where Martha and I used to fish in the spring. The water was low and gray, but it felt steady, familiar. I took out my phone and typed a message to Tiffany. "Restraining order filed. Legal eviction underway. If you want to talk, it has to be on neutral ground. No Harry, no excuses." "Just you and me." She replied 5 minutes later. "Understood. Just tell me when and where." I told her Wednesday. 2:00 p.m., back corner booth at Annie's Diner. Just like old times, but not really. I arrived 15 minutes early, took the seat facing the door. I wanted to see her walk in, wanted to see the posture, the eyes, the face without Harry's shadow standing behind it. She showed up 5 minutes late, alone, bundled in a navy coat too big for her shoulders. Her eyes found mine, and for a second, We were just two people with unfinished business and no clear way forward. She slid into the booth across from me, didn't speak. I let the silence stretch. She finally broke it. He left. Left where? Gone. Took his truck and whatever he could grab without looking me in the eye. No note, just gone. I nodded. No surprise. Guess the walls closed in faster than he thought, I said. She looked down at her hands. He owed more than I knew. The collectors started showing up. I didn't even know half the credit cards existed until they started calling. I didn't respond. I let her keep going. I thought we were just struggling, but he was lying constantly about money, about work, about how you felt about all of it. Her voice cracked. I thought you were just being difficult, that you didn't want to help, but it wasn't you who changed. It was me. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Set it on the table. I didn't touch it. It's a copy of the Facebook post I wrote. It goes live tonight, and I sent a letter to the Tribune. It'll run Sunday. What does it say? Everything, she whispered. The money you gave, the help, the ultimatum, the way we treated you. I finally looked at the paper. Typed, single-spaced, detailed. Her shame was in every line. I don't want anything from you, she said. Not the house, not money. I want to earn back your trust. Slowly, however long it takes. I watched her face, watched her brace for the verdict. What changed? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, when I saw Harry screaming at the window after the sheriff served the papers, when he threw the coffee table across the room, when he blamed you again for everything going wrong, and I realized he hadn't just manipulated me, he'd hollowed me out. You let him. I know, she said, voice quiet. I can't undo it, but I can stop defending it. We sat in silence, 2 mugs of coffee steaming between us. I finally nodded toward the paper. If you go through with that post, that letter, I'll know you mean it. Not before. I will. And I'm not changing the will. She blinked. I didn't ask. I know, but I need you to know. The house is going to the Montana Veterans Housing Initiative. It'll serve people who understand sacrifice, not entitlement. Tears welled in her eyes. That's fair. We sat there a little longer. When she stood to leave, I didn't hug her, but I didn't look away either. Dad, she asked. Yes? Would it be okay if we had coffee again sometime? Just you and me. Not as your daughter, just as someone trying to do better? I paused, then nodded once. Coffee's a good start. She gave a small, broken smile, then turned and walked out into the snow. I stayed behind, watching her figure recede into the white haze of winter, wondering if honesty could really rebuild what years of silence had eroded. 1 cup at a time, maybe. By Friday morning, the wind had shifted in Kalispell, and not just the weather. The Tribune printed Tiffany's letter under the heading, An Open Apology. My father deserved better. It was clear, honest, and unflinching. She listed the tuition payments, the wedding costs, the mortgage assistance. She admitted to watching her husband belittle me, to joining him in treating me like a walking ATM. She wrote, he didn't raise his voice, he didn't threaten. He simply packed his bag and left the house he paid for and the house I once called home. And now I understand. What he left behind wasn't just 4 walls. He left behind disrespect, entitlement, and the burden of being taken for granted. By noon, I couldn't walk a block without someone stopping me. Read the letter, Clark. You deserved better, man. She owned it. That's rare. My daughter's been through something similar. Your story helped. I didn't say much in return, just nodded, shook hands, thanked them softly. At the hardware store, Tom called me into the back. Just so you know, Harry tried to get a job here yesterday. Told me the whole town had turned on him for no reason. Said he was starting over. Tom poured 2 coffees and leaned against the wall. When I asked if he'd ever made things right with you, he said you were too old and bitter to forgive. I told him to leave. Firmly. I smiled. Appreciate it. He didn't take it well. Kicked over a display on his way out. Real piece of work. Later that day, I stopped by the Veterans Housing Initiative office. I'd signed over the deed a week ago, but I wanted to check on the project. Renovations had already begun. 3 separate families would eventually live in the remodeled house. 1 unit per family, shared garden space, common area in the basement. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, who'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan, was scheduled to move in with her 2 kids next month. Mr. Miller, we're not just grateful, she said. We're changed. You've given us a stable launch pad, not just shelter. I'm just glad the house will serve people who've earned it. She smiled, then added, I heard your story. You did the right thing. I walked home with that phrase echoing in my chest. You did the right thing. For a long time, I wasn't sure. Guilt has a way of clouding even your best decisions, especially when it wears your daughter's face. But now, with strangers reaching out, with Tiffany taking real steps, with justice applied through truth instead of cruelty, I knew. That night, I sat by the lake with a cup of coffee and a photo of Martha in my lap. You were right, I whispered. She just needed to see the bottom before she looked up. My phone buzzed. A message from Tiffany. Posted the Facebook letter just now. 230 comments in an hour. I don't care about the sympathy. Just wanted you to know I meant every word. Then another. And I found a second job. Starting Monday, I want to stand on my own, Dad. I looked out at the lake, its surface silver with moonlight. She was starting to climb. Not for me. Not because I begged her, but because the truth finally hurt more than the lie. And that's when change happens. 3 weeks passed. No more voicemails from Harry. No more unexpected knocks on motel doors. The restraining order worked like a perimeter, not just legally, but emotionally. Kalispell moved on, as towns do. But my life? My life was just beginning to settle into something new. Something earned. I'd gotten into a rhythm. Early mornings by the lake with motel coffee and the quiet hum of winter birds. Long walks downtown. A few days a week helping out at the vet's housing office. Nothing official, just odd jobs, organizing supplies, checking in with the families preparing to move into my old house. I didn't miss it. The house, I mean. Not anymore. Sometimes I'd drive by, slowly, just to see the siding repairs going up. The new windows, fresh paint. The porch light always on now, a little symbol of welcome for the people who'd soon live there. It no longer felt like something I'd lost. It felt like something I'd given. That's a different kind of peace, one I hadn't felt in years. Tiffany and I had kept our weekly coffee ritual. Saturdays, same booth at Annie's, always at 10 a.m. sharp. She'd show up in work clothes. She'd gotten a second job at a bookkeeping firm and started taking accounting classes online. I want to understand money, she told me once, half laughing. Seems like I owe it that much. She didn't ask for help, not once. Instead, she brought notebooks, budgets, lists of debts she was paying down. Proof of a life being rebuilt not out of desperation, but ownership. One Saturday, she slid a small box across the table. What's this? I asked. A key, she said. To my new apartment. Not fancy, but mine. I opened the box. A single bronze key. Cold. Honest. I ran my thumb over the ridges and looked up. You proud of yourself? She nodded. Trying to be. One good choice at a time. That afternoon, I finally stopped by the cabin I'd been eyeing for weeks. A modest place just west of Flathead Lake, tucked between pine trees and old memories. 2 bedrooms, a wood-burning stove, and a dock with just enough space for a lawn chair and a fishing pole. I signed the lease the next day. Cash, up front. Simple. No one to answer to. No one to tiptoe around. Just quiet, fresh air, and space. The following week, I moved in. Tiffany helped. We carried boxes together, no raised voices, no buried resentments. Just small talk and the occasional silence that didn't hurt anymore. After we finished, she stood in the middle of the living room, hands on hips. Looks good in here. Peaceful. It is. She looked down. I want to say something. You already have. No, not this. She swallowed. Thank you for walking away, Dad. I tilted my head. That's not what most people say. But it's what I needed, she said. It was the first time you made me face the cost of things. Really face it. I didn't do it to teach you a lesson. I know, she said quietly. That's why it worked. She didn't stay long, had a shift at the diner, but as she walked out the door, she turned and said, Let me know when you're ready to have people over. I'll bring dessert. Martha would have smiled at that. She'd have smiled at a lot of things lately, and maybe, just maybe, so could I. It was just past midnight when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something in my gut said to. I pressed the green icon and waited. Silence. Then a familiar voice, low and gravelly. You win, old man. Harry. I didn't speak. I let him sit in it. I'm in Spokane, he said. Sleeping in my truck. You happy? Still, I didn't respond. You ruined everything, he said, voice thick with rage and self-pity. The job, the credit, my reputation. You couldn't just let it go. I finally spoke. You did that yourself. You think you're better than me? No, I said. I just stopped pretending we were the same. He laughed, cold, ugly. Your daughter still calls me her husband. Not for much longer. Silence again. Then flatly. She filed? Yes. The air on the other end went sharp. He hadn't known. I heard the realization hit him like a gut punch. Tell her, he began, then stopped. What? But the line had already gone dead. I saved the number. Forwarded the call record to Detective Morrison in the morning, just in case. I wasn't scared of Harry, but I also wasn't stupid. Men like that didn't leave quietly, but his voice didn't rattle me the way it used to. It sounded smaller now. Hollow. Like he'd burned through all his options and was finally realizing there was no one left to bail him out. The following day, the cabin was quiet. I spent the morning chopping wood for the stove. The rhythm of it helped clear my mind. Split, stack, repeat. The air was clean, my breath visible in the chill. No shouting, no tension, just the sound of pine cracking open and the birds announcing the season's turn. After lunch, I drove into town to meet Pastor Williams. He'd invited me to speak at a community event. Something about elder financial abuse awareness. I wasn't sure at first. I didn't want a spotlight. But I understood the value of stories. We sat in his office going over the outline. Nothing dramatic, I said. Just the facts. The slow way dependency creeps in. The way guilt silences you. He nodded. People will listen, Clark. They've already seen how you handled this with grace. I wasn't always graceful. No, he said gently. But you were steady. That matters more. That evening, I got a text from Tiffany. Harry called, from a new number. Said he was cold. Said I owed him a place to stay. I didn't answer. Then another. Just thought you'd want to know. I'm done playing that part. I looked out the cabin window. Snow had begun falling again. Soft, light, beautiful. I typed back, good, let winter take him. She didn't reply. She didn't have to. The night before the community event, I stood at the edge of my dock, watching the lake freeze over in slow layers. It looked like forgiveness, not sudden, not easy, but solidifying inch by inch. In the reflection, I didn't see a man broken by betrayal. I saw someone weathered, yes, but intact, still standing, still whole. The next morning, I buttoned my best flannel, shaved, polished my shoes, not for anyone else, but for Martha. She always said dignity wasn't about being seen, it was about seeing yourself clearly. The event was held at the town library, folding chairs, a podium, a tray of grocery store cookies, and one of those big metal coffee urns that's always either too full or completely empty. I kept my talk short. I told the truth. Not just about the money I gave, but the emotional accounting. The little compromises, the swallowed protest, the way I made excuses in the name of love until it stopped looking like love at all. I told them about the moment in the living room when my daughter said, obey or leave, and how I'd left. Not out of pride, out of preservation. I saw a woman in the third row wipe her eyes. A man in the back nodded slowly. Afterward, people approached me, not with pity, but with respect. A retired teacher said, I gave my nephew a down payment on a condo. He hasn't called in 2 years. A nurse shared that her son moved in after rehab and never left or paid rent. An older woman clutched my hand and whispered, thank you for saying it out loud. Later, Pastor Williams pulled me aside. We're going to use your talk for our senior support group, with your permission. Of course, I said. As I was leaving, I saw Tiffany waiting by the doors. She hadn't sat in the audience. She wasn't ready for that, but she'd come. I watched through the window, she said. I heard enough. We stepped outside into the cold. I want to be that honest one day, she said. Still working up to it. You're getting there. She hesitated. I started going to therapy. I looked at her. That was new. Third session was yesterday, she said. It's hard. but I don't want to be the kind of person who lets someone like Harry rewrite my morals. We stood in silence for a moment. I used to think the worst thing that could happen was losing your love, she said. Now I think the worst thing was wasting it. I didn't answer right away. Then, you didn't lose it. She looked up. But you have to earn back the rest, I said. Not with words. With consistency. I know, she said. I want to try. We walked to the parking lot together, two people figuring out how to forgive without forgetting. As I drove back to the cabin, snow started to fall again. The road ahead was clean, untouched, a white ribbon stretching forward. Not a blank slate, but a fresh page. The first weekend in March, I lit a fire in the wood stove and opened the last box I'd brought from the motel. Inside were the remnants of my old life. Bills I no longer paid, letters I'd stopped receiving, and a single legal folder with Harry's name on it in bold Sharpie. The Thompson file. I flipped through it one more time. Mortgage statements, tuition receipts, canceled checks, printouts of voicemails and transcribed threats, his signature on the fake deed application. Detective Morrison's notes, clipped neatly. I'd kept it as protection, a paper shield, but it had served its purpose. I walked out to the fire pit behind the cabin, the one Martha and I used to sit beside with mugs of cocoa and quiet hands, and fed the file to the flames, one page at a time. I didn't watch it all burn, just enough to know it was gone. Some stories don't deserve an archive. Back inside, I cleaned the kitchen top to bottom. Not because it needed it, but because I did. There's a kind of comfort in wiping away the dust, in making a space reflect the peace you've fought to earn. That afternoon, Tiffany came by unannounced. She'd started doing that lately, never assuming I'd say yes, never expecting a warm welcome, just showing up. This time she brought banana bread and an envelope. What's this? I asked. A reimbursement, she said, trying to smile. Inside were 5 crisp $20 bills. Dad, I know this doesn't even touch the surface, but I want to pay you back, even if it's $20 at a time. I didn't reject it. I just nodded and set the envelope on the counter. I'm proud of you, I said. Not because you're paying me back, but because you finally see the value of what was given. Her eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. She asked if she could stay for dinner. I said yes. We ate reheated stew and warm banana bread and sat on the porch afterward, watching the trees sway in the wind. There was a moment, just one, where she leaned her head against my shoulder. Light as a feather. Tentative but honest. I didn't think I deserved to be let back in, she said. You didn't, I said softly. Not at first. But you're working for it now. That matters more. The next morning, I got a voicemail from Pastor Williams. We're putting together a board for the Veterans Housing Initiative. They'd like to name you to it, honorary position, but you'd be helping with applicant reviews and support planning. Think about it. I smiled. The house that had once been a source of betrayal had become something new, something better. The next day, I accepted the position. One of the families, a young couple with a newborn, sent me a card a week later. Your house saved our future. We don't know how to thank you, so we'll just live well in your honor. I taped it above my desk. Every time I saw it, I remembered this had started with a beer. One beer I didn't fetch. One refusal that became a line in the sand. And sometimes that's all it takes. A line. And the courage not to cross it. Spring arrived early that year. The snow melted fast, leaving patches of brown earth and the first green shoots poking through around the base of the porch. Out by the lake, the ice retreated in ragged plates, clearing enough for the geese to return. I bought a rocking chair for the deck, second-hand with a bit of wobble. Perfect. The morning Tiffany knocked, I was sanding it. She stood there holding a thermos and 2 cups. Trade, she said. You give me 10 minutes on the porch, I give you coffee. Deal. We sat in silence, watching the mist curl off the lake. After a while, she said, You know what I regret the most? I didn't answer. Not the money, she said. Not even Harry. I waited. I regret how I talked about you when you weren't around. To my friends, to him. Like you were a burden. Like we were doing you a favor. I didn't flinch. You were grieving. You were lonely. You were generous. And I made that sound like weakness. She stared out across the water. Her voice was soft but steady. I wanted to believe I was grown, that I had things under control, but the truth is, I was leaning on you so hard, I didn't notice you were breaking. I let the words settle. I was afraid of saying no, I said. Not because I didn't know how, but because I thought I'd lose you if I did. She nodded. And I made sure you believed that. Neither of us spoke for a long time. When she stood to leave, she set her empty cup beside mine. I'm selling the engagement ring, she said. Harry put it on a credit card. I'll use the money to finish paying off the insurance balance. I blinked. You don't need to explain. I know, I just wanted you to hear me say it. I'm not fixing this for applause. I'm fixing it because it's mine to fix. After she left, I sat back in the rocker and let it creak beneath me. The lake was glassy now, clear enough to reflect things properly. I'd spent so long trying to keep things together, the house, the bank accounts, the fragile illusion of family harmony, that I'd forgotten the difference between love and leverage. And when I'd finally stepped away from it all, the silence that followed was terrifying, but necessary. From that silence came boundaries. From boundaries came truth. And from truth, the beginnings of something real. Not what I had before, but maybe something better. Not louder, not grander, just honest. That evening, I walked down to the dock with a notepad. I'd been asked to write a short piece for the Veterans Housing newsletter. Something personal, something about what giving up my house had meant. I wrote this. Sometimes generosity starts with guilt, but dignity begins when you stop being ashamed of wanting respect. I didn't lose my home. I gave it away on purpose. And in return, I found peace. I tore the page from the pad and set it gently beside my coffee cup. The wind off the lake was soft, but steady. The call came on a Tuesday morning, not from Tiffany, not from the pastor or the Veterans Board. It was Detective Morrison. Just a heads up, he said. Harry's been arrested. Spokane PD picked him up after a bar fight. Outstanding warrants flagged during booking. One of them's from our jurisdiction. Warrants? 2 counts of attempted fraud. One tied to the forged deed, the other linked to a bogus insurance claim he filed months back. And that threatening voicemail you forwarded? That helped us get it all to stick. I let the information wash over me. It didn't feel like triumph. It felt quiet. I thought you should hear it from me before it hits the paper, Morrison said. Appreciate that. They're holding him without bail. Extradition request's been filed. You're listed as a key witness if it moves forward. Understood. I hung up, made a fresh cup of coffee, and sat by the window for a while. The lake outside was restless, small waves tapping against the dock like fingers testing a door. I didn't call Tiffany. Didn't need to. 2 hours later, she showed up. She didn't knock this time. Just stepped out onto the porch, wrapped in a denim jacket and a caution. I heard, she said. It's in the news already. I nodded. She leaned against the railing. Part of me feels nothing, like it was always heading this way. And the other part? Wants to cry. Not because I miss him, but because I stayed so long I almost went down with him. That's the trick with people like him, I said. They don't drag you under. They wait until you don't remember how to swim. She looked at me. Do you think he ever loved me? I think he loved what you gave him. The attention, the protection, the name. But real love doesn't bankrupt people to stay afloat. She sat on the porch swing, quiet for a long time. You're going to have to testify, aren't you? She asked. Maybe. Depends how it plays out. I'm sorry. You don't need to be sorry for the consequences of someone else's choices, I said. But you do need to keep choosing better. I am, she hesitated. I've been thinking of writing a book, she said finally. Nothing big, just essays about control, codependency, coming back from the edge. I smiled. Sounds like something the world could use. It's not for the world, she said. It's for me. But if someone else finds something in it, even better. We watched the sun slip behind the trees. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of wet pine and lake water. A single gull cried overhead, then was gone. You want to stay for dinner? I asked. She nodded. We didn't say anything more, not for a while. But the silence between us no longer felt loaded. No more weight, no more traps. Just room to breathe, and that was something worth preserving. 3 weeks after Harry's arrest, I got a letter from the county prosecutor. Charges filed, trial pending. My presence likely required. I folded it twice, placed it in the drawer beneath my coffee mugs, and poured myself a cup. Black, hot, grounding. I wouldn't lie and say I didn't feel anything. There was a small flicker of satisfaction. Not vengeance exactly, but relief. The kind that only comes when someone finally names what's been happening to you out loud in a courtroom, with the force of the law behind it. Still, the bigger part of me just felt tired. That afternoon I drove out to the old Miller place, not my house anymore, but still familiar. The renovations were complete. The siding gleamed. The porch had been rebuilt, stained a deep cedar. A new fence bordered the garden, and 3 mailboxes stood at the end of the drive, each one bearing a name I didn't recognize. I didn't need to. A little girl in a yellow coat ran out the front door, laughing. Her mother followed with a folded stroller and a tired but grateful expression. They didn't see me sitting in the truck, and I didn't introduce myself. They didn't need to know who I was to be safe there. And that was the whole point. That night I stood in the cabin, staring at the single envelope Tiffany had given me the week before. Another repayment. This one held $60. She hadn't mentioned it. No note, just placed it quietly by the fruit bowl and left it at that. She was keeping a promise, one installment at a time. I didn't cash it, I didn't need the money, but I kept the envelope. Some things are worth more untouched. The next morning, I met with a counselor at the community center. Not for therapy, but for planning. A pilot program for seniors experiencing financial abuse. I'd offered to help launch it, share my story, give it structure. The counselor asked what I wanted to call it. I thought about it for a while, then said, "Call it The Line." She looked up. As in crossing it? As in drawing it, I said, and learning it's not wrong to walk away. The first session was scheduled for April. I'd already made flyers. I even asked Tom to hang one in the window of the hardware store. Tiffany said she'd help organize materials. We weren't the same people we were a year ago, and thank God for that. On the way home, I stopped by Annie's and got a slice of pie, sat at our old booth, just me this time, and watched the people pass by outside. Young couple arguing over a phone bill. Older man helping his wife out of a car. A girl handing a stray dollar to someone sitting on the curb. Life rolling on, unbothered and honest. When I got back to the cabin, the lake was calm. A storm was predicted for the weekend, but for now, the wind held off. I stepped out onto the dock and watched the sky turn amber. No fanfare, no dramatic ending. Just a man, upright, after everything. And free. I turned 71 in April. Nothing fancy, just coffee on the porch, a visit from Tiffany, and a card from the Veterans Housing Team that made me laugh out loud. They'd all signed it, including the little girl in the yellow coat, who'd drawn a stick figure labeled Thank you, Mr. Clark. Tiffany brought me a lemon pie she baked herself. It was a little too tart, but the crust was perfect. She sat with me for a while. No agenda, no guilt, just her presence. She gave me a gift too, a clean, hardcover journal with a navy blue cover and the words, "Start here" embossed in gold. What am I supposed to do with this? I asked. Write it down, she said. All of it. Your version. Not for court, not for anyone else. Just for you. Later that night, I opened it and wrote a single line on the first page. The cost of silence is heavier than the cost of speaking. Then I closed it. I'd fill it eventually. I wasn't in a rush. The following week, I walked the length of Main Street alone, past every place where the old version of my life had unraveled. The post office, where I realized the lies had started stacking up. The church where Harry tried to poison my name. The bank where I'd finally said it out loud. Not one of those places felt haunted anymore. The ghosts had packed up. All that was left was the shape of the man I'd become. It's funny, for years I thought surviving meant holding on, being quiet, making peace for the sake of peace. Turns out surviving is mostly about knowing when to let go. Of the house. Of the stories people tell about you. Of the people who only come around when there's something to take. I lost a lot in the last few years, but I gained something more valuable than anything Harry or Tiffany ever asked for. I gained myself back. Now the cabin is home. The lake is steady, and the porch light stays on, not for guests, not for rescue, just for me. Just to say I'm still here. And I've got more to write. If you've read this far, thank you. Truly. I don't share this story for sympathy or spectacle. I share it because some of you out there know exactly what it's like to be taken for granted. To love someone who turns that love into a currency. If that's you, here's what I'll say. Draw your line. And when the moment comes, have the courage to walk away with your dignity intact. You might be surprised what's waiting on the other side. Be well. Clark.